What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp, the sequel to the surprise hit Ant-Man that came out back in 2015. The film tells the story of Scott Lang, who is trying to balance both being a superhero and a father, and Hope and Hank, who are trying to bring back Janet from the quantum realm. And I might be in the minority when it comes to this film, mostly because I think I enjoyed this film a little bit more than I enjoyed Ant-Man, because there were a couple of things that they did right in this film, a couple of things that they kind of stumbled upon, but for the most part, I thought this movie was a lot of fun. This movie really does pick up mostly right after Civil War. We have Scott Lang, who was under house arrest for his participation in Civil War, and Hank and Hope are not really on speaking terms with him because of everything that happened in Germany, and so they really don't have a healthy relationship up to this point. What this movie does well is not only just give us the things that we enjoyed about the first Ant-Man, but give us something a little bit more. This movie was a little bit more action-packed than the first film, and that is not really entirely a bad thing. However, sometimes that does kind of falter just a little bit when it comes to the story. A couple of jokes in this film do land, and a lot of them really fall flat. But what this film does very well is give us a little bit more of that dynamic between Hope and Hank in this movie, because in the first Ant-Man film we really didn't get to see a lot of that dynamic when it came to that pairing. We saw it just a little bit. We got a little bit of hints about how they're really not all that there at that point because of what happened to Janet. But this movie really does a good job of giving us a little bit more and having Hank really be involved in the action in this film, because it really does feel like they really wanted to do something more with Hank in this movie. And just the way that he reunites with Janet towards the end of the movie, that's something that I really enjoyed about that. Mostly because I really enjoyed the chemistry between Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas when we had it there, and that reunion was actually pretty fun. I really enjoyed that reunion. That is one of the most sweet and tender moments that we had in this film. But you also have Scott Lang, who is under house arrest, and he is trying everything that he possibly can to not get caught, so he is able to have that freedom again. And just like typical fashion, he gets roped into a life that he didn't want to be a part of, and just trying to basically just balance trying to not get caught and be able to have that relationship with Hope again. I think that is something that I absolutely loved and enjoyed about this film. The film also stars Hannah John Kamen as Ghost, Randall Park as Jimmy Woo, Lawrence Fishburne as Dr. Bill Foster, and we have a new villain here who is kind of the villain, played by Walton Goggins, who I really had high hopes for his character in this movie. However, I don't think they really utilized him all too much, and you could have taken him out of the film. You wouldn't have lost anything, because really when he shows up, whenever he does show up and he is gone for a majority of the movie, you kind of forget that he is in the film and he is involved somehow, some way, and it doesn't do him justice in this film. You kind of could have taken him out, because he is just one of the most forgettable characters in the movie. What they were doing with Ghost, I actually liked to a degree. I like the story that they gave her. I just don't think they gave her a lot of material in this movie to work with, mostly because I really enjoyed the little twist that we had between her and Fishburne in this movie, and it just kind of had a really nice, refreshing take. One thing that I really enjoyed about this movie, and what I enjoyed about the Ant-Man films as a whole, I'm not sure how I'm going to be feeling about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium, but just speaking on the terms of these two films, they really are just small scales where it doesn't really feel like you have to be saving the end of the world in order to have a happy ending. In the first one, it was just about Scott Lang trying to have that relationship with his daughter, and in this movie, it was mostly just about saving Janet from the quantum realm, trying to bring her back. And I think that worked to its great effect. One thing that they absolutely did nail in this movie was just the visual effects. I think they bumped it up just a little bit, and it added a little bit more when it had the shrinking effect and the growing effects. I think the way that Ghost looks and moves, I thought she looked fantastic, and I really enjoyed that presence. However, like I said, it doesn't really give her a lot to do in this movie because she is woven in here and there. And just the inclusion of Michael Pena, T.I., and David Dastmalchian was absolutely fantastic. I really love it when they are in the Ant-Man films because it does give us a bit of a levity, a little bit of humor, and just the way that we still have that father-daughter dynamic between Scott and his daughter. That is something that I absolutely loved in the first Ant-Man film, and I absolutely loved in this movie. It was just those small moments that I absolutely loved that really does tie these films together. However, even though I do enjoy a majority of this film a little bit more than the first film, there are things that the first film did very well, and this film kind of faltered just a little bit. I really liked the story. There were just a couple of characters that I would have taken out just so we would be able to have a better cohesive story, because you didn't really need a lot of these characters. I think if you just mostly focused on Ghost and the relationship between Ava and Bill in this film, I think you could have had something great, but it also gets bogged down because you also have other characters that you kind of forget are in this film, and it gave us a couple of great post-credit scenes that really tied into Avengers Endgame, and I absolutely loved those two post-credit scenes. I know a lot of people are not a fan of the last one. I personally enjoy it just because we get to see the scope of the snap, but this movie was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed a majority of this film. A lot of the jokes do land, a lot of them do fall flat, but for the most part, this movie was a fun entry in the Ant-Man series. I'm really excited to see what they're going to be doing with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumanium, but those are my thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp. Have you guys checked it out? Did you like it? Does it compare to the first one? Do you really not just vibe with the Ant-Man series? Go ahead and drop those thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this video, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on more. We're going to be doing a couple more review series leading up to other films, such as Creed 3. So we're going to be reviewing the Rocky franchise, including Creed 1 and 2, and then Scream leading up to Scream 6. So hopefully you guys are able to tune in for those, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.